everyday family routine. My wife Sophie, on the other hand, prefers quiet and peaceful activities like embroidery or yoga. But Catherine and I have a shared passion, fishing. Every time my mother-in-law and I start discussing an upcoming fishing trip, Sophie's eyes roll back so far that only the whites are visible again. With your fishing tales, she grumbles good-naturedly, but Catherine and I just wink at each other. How can anyone resist the call of the rod in the anticipation of a good catch? So on one sunny Saturday, we decided to fulfill our long-held dream to fish on a picturesque lake, a few hours' drive from the city. Sophie, as always, refused to keep us company, citing urgent business in the garden. Catherine and I just exchanged meaningful glances. Yeah, sure, flowers are more important than fish. The preparations were short: fishing rods, bait sandwiches, and a thermos of coffee. That's all you need for the perfect weekend in nature. Catherine, in her unchanging checkered shirt and rubber boots, looked like a true conqueror of the aquatic element. I even a little envious of her dashing confidence. Well, son-in-law ready to beat all the catch records. Catherine winked at me, climbing into the car. Always ready, mother-in-law. The main thing is that the fish don't mind. I joked back, settling behind the wheel. We gave each other a high five and set off for adventure. If only I had known then what this innocent fishing trip would turn into. The road to the lake flew by, unnoticed, amid lively conversation and playful banter. Catherine and I argued about the best bait-shared stories about the most epic catches and tried to guess who would be lucky. Today the mood was high. The anticipation of a great day was bubbling in our blood. When we finally reached the spot, the sun was already high, painting the water a turquoise color. A calming silence reigned around, broken only by the chirping of birds in the lapping of waves. Perfect conditions for fishing. We quickly set up our gear, put the bait on, and cast our lines. Catherine, with an adventurous glint in her eye, immediately began to tease me. Watch out, Jack. Don't miss a bite, or I'm already in the mood for a double portion of fish soup. Don't sweat it, mother-in-law. Today the fish will be asking to get on our hook themselves, I parried, adjusting my hat with exaggerated seriousness. Catherine laughed, and I couldn't help but admire her. What a restless woman in her slightly over 50. She could give any man a run for his money in terms of energy and zest for life. Not like my quiet wife. Then my thoughts were interrupted by a loud splash. Catherine even jumped in, surprise almost dropping her. Rod, wow, looks like someone's hungry here, I whistled, nodding at the ripples spreading across the water. I hope it's not the legendary man-eating fish, Catherine giggled, or you and I risk becoming lunch instead of the catchers. Don't be afraid, mother-in-law. I won't let anyone hurt you, I bragged, puffing out my worst-case scenario. I'll throw you a life preserver or a sandwich. We laughed together, scaring away the peaceful lake fauna. That's what I love about Catherine. It's never boring with her. Even a simple fishing trip turns into an exciting adventure for the next couple of hours. We indulged in our favorite pastime, with abandon the rods, kept diving into the water. The lines hummed tensely, and our catch slowly grew. The trophies, of course, weren't gigantic, but as they say, size doesn't matter. The process itself is important. Catherine and I encouraged each other, exchanged jokes, and shared observations. Sometimes our hands would accidentally touch when we reached for the bait or a new rod, and each time I caught myself thinking that my mother-in-law's touch gave me a strange shiver, but I pushed those thoughts away. Maybe my hands just got cold in the fresh air. Gradually, the sun began to sink towards the horizon, painting the sky in soft pink tones. The fish were biting less frequently, and our fighting spirit had died down a bit. Catherine and I, pacified and content, sat shoulder to shoulder, admiring the view that opened up. What a beauty, Catherine drawled dreamily. It's as if nature itself decided to put on a personal show for us. That's for sure, I agreed. Glancing sideways at my mother-in-law, moments like these should be treasured. It's not every day you get a chance to just sit like this. Relax your soul. Catherine turned to me, and our eyes met. There was something new in her gaze that I hadn't noticed before, some mysterious tenderness mixed with mischief. My throat suddenly went dry, and my heart started racing like crazy. We froze, looking at each other, As if enchanted, the air around us seemed to thicken and crackle with tension. It seemed that even nature held its, watching the unfolding scene, and at that moment, something incredible happened. I don't know which of us reached out first. It happened so naturally and smoothly, as if we had been waiting for this all our lives, Ahmed in a first timidly exploring, and then more passionately and greedily. The fishing rods fell out of weakened hands, hitting the bottom of the boat with a dull thud. But we didn't care. The whole world seemed to cease to exist, dissolving in a whirlpool of new sensations. Catherine's arms wrapped around my neck, her fingers tangled in my hair. I held her tightly, her heaving in time with her frantic heartbeat, our tongues intertwined in an intricate dance, exploring, tasting, teasing. It was so unexpected and at the same time so right that my head started spinning. All those strange I'd been experiencing towards Catherine lately suddenly made sense. It turns out I just didn't want to admit the obvious to myself, though was getting hotter, more insistent. Catherine made barely audible moans that sent shivers through I ran my hands over her back buttocks, unable to get enough of her touch. The boat rocked on the waves, but we didn't care. We seemed to have merged into one, dissolving into each other completely. No shame, no embarrassment, only all-consuming passion and desire. The fog in my head cleared only when my fingers stumbled upon the barrier of clothing. Interesting. And when did Catherine manage to get her hands under my shirt? This sobered me up a little. I reluctantly away heavily, and looking at Catherine with hazy eyes. She looked no better, hair disheveled, swollen from feverish blush on her cheeks. "God, Jack," she mumbled, coming to her senses. "What are we doing? We can't—" "I know," I interrupted Healy, "but I can't resist." "This anymore?" "Catherine, I think I've fallen in love with you," my mother-in-law gasped, pressing her hand to her. Something like panic flashed in her eyes. "But what about Sophie? She's my daughter, your wife. We mustn't." I hugged her, interrupting her faltering speech. My heart was pounding so hard it seemed about to jump out of my— "I understand, Catherine. But you can't argue with— Let's at least, today, here and now, be honest with ourselves, and then whatever will be, will be." She looked at me for a long time as if trying to read my thoughts, and then she sighed and nodded, cupping my face in her hands. "You're right, Jack. I've also been in love with you for a long time, and even if it's wrong, I'm tired of pretending our merged again in this time slow and sensual, and then something happened that turned my whole life upside down. We made love right there in the boat in the middle of the lake, and to hell with it being madness, to hell with the fishing gear digging into my back and the water splashing over the side. The main thing was that Catherine and I had finally become one. It was like a supernova explosion, bright, blinding, sweeping everything in its path. Reality shattered into a million pieces, leaving only our entwined bodies and primal peace. I don't know how long it lasted, maybe minutes, maybe hours. Time lost its meaning. We dissolved into each other, forgetting about everything in the world, and only the sky and the smooth surface of the lake were silent witnesses to our forbidden love. When it was over, we lay in each other's arms for a long time, afraid to disturb the magic of the moment. Serenity and sweet lyre spread through our veins, pushing out all disturbing thoughts. But deep down, I already understood after this, our lives would never be the same. Catherine and I had crossed a line from which there was no return, and how are we supposed to live with all this? Now, the way back passed in oppressive silence. Catherine and I seemed to be afraid to even look at each other, let alone talk. The realization of what had happened was crashing down like a ninth wave, threatening to bury the remnants of common sense under it. Lord, what have we done? How could we have succumbed to this crazy impulse? I have a wife. Catherine has a husband. We're one family, and now everything has gone to hell because of 1 minute of weakness. I stealthily threw guilty glances at Catherine. She sat with her back turned to the window, nervously fiddling with a strand of hair from a tense posture and clenched. I could tell that my mother-in-law's thoughts were similar to mine. She, too, was scared and awkward after all that had happened between us. But damn it, as much as I reproached myself, I couldn't help but admit it. It was amazing. I had never experienced anything like it with any woman, even with Sophie, whom I supposedly loved with all my heart next to Catherine, it was as if I was born again, experienced true passion and unity of souls. These thoughts made it even worse, so not only did I cheat on my wife, but I also managed to fall in love with my own mother-in-law. Way to go. Jack, you officially suck. When our town appeared ahead, Catherine suddenly turned to me impulsively. Jack, we need to talk, she said resolutely, although her voice trembled slightly. What happened at the lake? We can't ignore it. I sighed heavily, gripping the steering wheel tighter. Well, here it is, the moment of truth now. My mother-in-law will tell me what a scoundrel I am, and that we'd better pretend nothing happened and she'll be right. Damn it. I know, Catherine, I replied dully. I screwed up, royally betrayed. Sophie. Destroyed our family. You have every right to hate me, but her reaction surprised me, instead of showering me with reproaches. Catherine suddenly covered my hand with hers. No, Jack, you didn't screw up. We both stumbled, gave in to we had been hiding for too long, she said softly, and I can't hate you because I love you. My heart nearly leaped out of at those words. Catherine, my stern and unapproachable mother-in-law, loves me, and she even admits at first I must be dreaming or hallucinating. Really, was all I could squeeze out. Looking at her dumbfounded, You love me, but how? I don't know myself. How it happened. Catherine shook her head. I just realized at some point that you mean more to me than just a son-in-law, that I feel good and easy with you, like with no one else. Her sincerity brought tears to my eyes. Damn, I never thought I'd be so touched by my mother-in-law's words. But now, looking into her eyes shining with tenderness, I like the happiest idiot in the world. I love you too. Catherine, I blurted out, not even trying to choose my words. I've loved you for a long time. I was just afraid to admit it to myself. But now, everything has changed. She smiled sadly, squeezing my hand. Yes, Jack. Everything has changed irreversibly, and we'll have to somehow live with it. I nodded, understanding that she was right. Our little affair couldn't last forever. Sooner or later, we'd have to return to the real world where each of us has our own obligations. But now, in this moment of revelations and confessions, I didn't care about the consequences. I only wanted one thing to hug Catherine to in her scent, to feel the of her, and to hell with what people think, to hell with everything. As if hearing my thoughts, Catherine suddenly leaned forward, and me gently, almost chastely with her. Only but from this simple caress, it was as if lightning struck me down to my fingertips. We'll have one more day, Jack, she whispered away. A day when we can be ourselves without thinking about anything. And then we'll see how the cards fall, and I agreed. What else could I do now that I knew about Catherine's refusing was beyond my power? Even knowing it was wrong, even remembering Sophie. I couldn't resist the call of my heart, so I just nodded. Starting the engine again, agreed Catherine. We'll have this day, and then whatever will be, will be. And we drove on towards the unknown, towards the consequences of our reckless impulse, towards what would change our fates forever. But you know what? Even now, after so many years, I don't regret anything, because that stolen day became the happiest in my life. And even if for others I remained a shameless traitor, it was worth it after all. True love is worth any sacrifice, even if you are lucky enough to find it in the most unexpected place in the heart of your own mother-in-law. Our secret day came a week later. Sophie went away for the whole weekend to a friend's place, and Catherine and I made an appointment with each other in a small hotel on the outskirts of town. I was terribly nervous the whole way. My palms were sweating, my heart was racing, my throat was dry, like I was going on a first date. No, a secret rendezvous with my mistress, who, by the way, was also my wife's mother. But as soon as I saw Catherine waiting for me at the hotel entrance, all my fears and doubts vanished. She was standing in a simple blue dress with her hair down and light makeup, and there was something about her. Something youthful, tremulous, exciting. Not at all like the image of the stern mother-in-law I was used to. Hi, coming closer. You look amazing. Catherine smiled, and an adorable blush flared on her cheeks. God! She had never blushed in my presence before. Thank you, Jack. You look quite good yourself. She winked, giving me an appraising look. Indeed, I had tried to dress up. I even shaved and splashed on so much cologne that I almost suffocated myself. I wanted to make an impression to look worthy next to Catherine, as if it could somehow justify our affair in the eyes of society. We checked in, trying not to attract unnecessary attention. The receptionist, a pretty girl of about 20, gave us an understanding smile. Apparently, she took us for a couple of lovers who had decided to brighten up their dull family routine. If only she knew the whole irony of the situation, although maybe it's for the best. No need to spoil the appetite of a young creature by enlightening her about our tangled relationship. The room turned out to be small but cozy, a wide bed, nightstands, a wooden dresser, and a lush bouquet of scarlet roses on the coffee table, apparently a compliment from the establishment. Catherine and I froze on the threshold, suddenly embarrassed and not knowing what to do next. It's one thing to indulge in passion in the middle of a lake on adrenaline and emotions, and quite another like this alone in the silence of a hotel room. But then our eyes met, and there was no more room for embarrassment. The same fire that had been there a week ago was burning in Catherine's eyes, the fire of desire, tenderness, and budding love. Without any agreement, we stepped towards each other and merged into, at first, tender and gentle, and then more and more passionate and hot hands slid over bodies, caressing, exploring crumpling clothes. I scooped Catherine up in my arms and carried her to the bed, not breaking I laid her down gently, as if she were a porcelain doll, and began to cover her face, neck, and collarbones with. She arched to meet me, moaning with pleasure. Then everything blurred into a whirlwind of caresses and touches. Clothes flew to the floor, exposing heated bodies. We like crazy until our were red and our was ragged. And then magic happened, that very union of souls and bodies, that one is given to experience only once in a lifetime. Catherine and I moved in unison, intertwining in an embrace, merging into one reality ceased to exist, leaving only our moans, flashes of blinding pleasure. I don't know how long it lasted, maybe minutes, maybe hours. Time stopped, turning into eternity. We made love again and again until our strength ran out, and then we just lay there pressing against each other and talked quietly. Catherine told me about her life, about her unsuccessful first marriage, the difficulties of raising a daughter, the dreams that never came true, and listened, stroking her hair, amazed at how much I didn't know about this amazing woman. We talked almost until dawn, occasionally diving into the sweet languor of passion, and only at sunrise did we fall into a restless sleep after all reality was already looming on the horizon, threatening to burst into our fragile little world, and in the morning, everything ended as suddenly as it had begun. We dressed carefully, avoiding each other's eyes. Tension mixed with a slight bitterness hung in the air. We both understood the fairy tale was over. It was time to return to the harsh world. So that's it. Catherine broke the silence. Her voice faltered, and tears glistened in her eyes. I swallowed the lump that had risen in my throat and impulsively hugged her, burying my face in her soft hair. "No, darling, not all of it," I whispered, barely audible. Our memories. They will always be with us just now. We'll have to keep them. Secret. Catherine sniffled softly but nodded in agreement. We both understood that there was no other way. Too much was at stake. Families, reputations, the whole life we had been building for years. So we had to let each other go, leave the room, get into different cars, and go in different directions to the familiar flow of everyday life. But I knew for sure, no matter what happened next, this stolen day would stay with me forever, as a reminder that true love does exist after all, even if you were lucky enough to catch it at the most inopportune moment. And with the most unexpected person, life went on as usual. Work, home, family, rare outings with friends. I tried hard to pretend that everything was fine, that nothing had changed. I smiled at Sophie, made plans for the future. But deep down, I carried my secret, like an unhealed wound. Memories of Catherine, of our fleeting moments of happiness. They wouldn't let go for a moment. I caught myself staring at my mother-in-law more and more often during family gatherings, seeking her gaze, accidentally touching her hand. and I saw that the same thing was happening to her. Behind the mask of polite friendliness was a whole storm of emotions, longing, tenderness, regret. All this flickered in her eyes every time our gazes met. We tried to keep our distance to communicate only as much as was appropriate for relatives, but the tension between us grew with each passing day. It seemed that just a little more, and all the carefully erected barriers would collapse, burying the remnants of prudence under the rubble. Sophie seemed to suspect something. She started asking more questions, looking more closely at my face as if trying to read my innermost thoughts. A couple of times she even made a scene of jealousy out of the blue. I joked it off, blaming it on stress and fatigue, but inwardly I went cold with horror. Could she have guessed everything would, May and Catherine's secret, be revealed at any moment, crushing everything in its path? These thoughts made me feel sick. I didn't want to hurt Sophie, I didn't want to destroy our family, but I couldn't give up for Catherine either. This woman had bewitched me, gotten under my skin, into my very heart. I guess that's how people go crazy, torn between duty and desire, between what's right and what's the only thing that matters, balancing on the edge, beyond which lies an abyss and uncertainty. The climax came at one of the family dinners we were celebrating. Sophie's birthday. The whole family had gathered. It was noisy, fun. Congratulations and toasts were coming from all sides, and I was looking at Catherine and saw a silent plea in her eyes. At one point, we found ourselves alone in the kitchen. Catherine went,